Hey friends, it's Nikki here at Stillwater's Wreath Designs, and today I'm going to teach you how to make a tulip wreath. So let's walk through the supplies that you're going to need. You're going to need a good pair of scissors, your wire snips, a glue gun, and of course some glue sticks. I prefer Gorilla Glue. It seems to hold really well, but that's just a personal preference. You can stick with just using your glue gun, or you can alternate between the glue gun and a glue pot. So if you're not familiar with a glue pot, this is what it is. And all it really is, friends, is like an 8x8 electric skillet. I actually picked this up on Amazon, and anytime I am gluing down a ton of florals, I usually use the glue pot. For this project, we're going to actually use both the glue gun and the glue pot, and I'll show you why in just a short bit. You're also going to need lots and lots and lots and lots of tulips. I'm actually jumping up a size on my grapevine wreath, so I'm not entirely sure how many bunches we'll need. We'll review that at the end once we can have a final count. I'm going to start out with 6 bunches, although I'm sure it'll probably be closer to 10 to 12, but we'll certainly see. I actually got my tulips from Michael's, and there's usually 6 to 8 stems per bush, and by stem, so this entire thing is your tulip bush, and each individual piece here is called your stem. So let's see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think it kind of varies between 6 and 8. And I've just grabbed 3 of the fuchsia tulips and 3 of the lighter pink and cream tulips. I thought that would be a good mix. Let me throw those off to the side. You're also going to need a grapevine wreath. This is, I believe, an 18-inch. Yep, it's an 18-inch. I typically use, excuse me, a 14 or 15-inch, which is why I'm not entirely sure how many bunches of tulips we'll be going through. So we'll figure this out together. Tulip wreaths are actually really easy to make. They just take a good bit of time. There's a lot of repetitive work and a lot of prep work. So we've thrown our tulips off to the side for now. And I've just cut off the tag to the grapevine wreath. And now I'm going to just use my snips. You can use your scissors or even just your hands and clean up the grapevine here. I'm just going to be trimming off any squirrely, extra long, or loose pieces. We'll probably find a few more after this initial trim, but just a quick cleanup. So work your way around your wreath, snip off all of those squirrely pieces, and then I'll meet you back here. It doesn't have to be perfect, friends. You just want those obviously extra large pieces to be trimmed off so that they're out of the way. Once you've trimmed your grapevine, go ahead and set that off to the side. I forgot to mention earlier, friends, I apologize. While you were trimming your grapevine, that was a good time to go ahead and plug in your glue gun so it could be heating up. And depending on the quality of the tulips, who knows how much glue you'll be using. So just have your glue gun ready. I always keep it on the high setting. Have an extra glue stick off to the side in case you need it. And your scissors off to the side. because what we have to do now is prep our tulip. So to prep a tulip, of course, you need to get rid of your price tag. That one peeled off really easily, I'm thankful for. Sometimes they don't. So get rid of your price tag. And if you look closely on your tulip bunches, on the stems, you're going to see there's some indents along the way. I typically trim mine off, usually an inch or so, maybe an inch and a half, up above where it's attached to the base. So this is the base. I just pull one off to the side and cut it off. And you're going to do that for every single tulip in this bush. Just get them cut off. You can always trim the bottom a little bit more if you need to. Then go ahead and throw away that end. You don't need that. So we've taken off the price tag. We've trimmed the stems off the bush. And I'm sure you've probably worked with artificial flowers before, but the green piece typically pushes up. So I usually push it up until it's basically a 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch below where the actual tulip flowers are. Then I double check that where the tulip piece, as you can see, it's all plastic, meets the stem is sturdy. I just give it a little tug to make sure it doesn't come off. This one's pretty sturdy. If it weren't sturdy, then this is where we would use our glue gun. Okay, this is the tulip prep. So if this weren't attached firmly, we would just put a drop of hot glue on there and shove this guy back on to make it sturdy. So now that we've checked that, I'm going to make sure all 3 of the tulips are on good. Just give them a gentle tug. And this one is pretty good. So not much prep needed. We can toss it off to the side. We're going to check our next bunch of tulips. I'm going to shove that greenery bit nearly all the way to the top. Double check and make sure that this tulip pieces are attached well. They are. Now I'm making sure the tulips are attached well to their little stems. A couple tugs and they're good. Picking up the next one, pushing up the greenery, giving that a little tug, making sure all 3 tulips are attached well. Gosh, we're doing good, guys. It's not usually like this. If I didn't mention before, I typically get my tulips at Michael's. They've got a boatload of different color options available. And I typically order them in bulk online. But you can certainly hit up your Michael's store. They're usually on sale about this time of year. You guys, I think we're going to have made it through that whole bush with no squirrely loose tulips. That's awesome. All right, we'll go on to the next one. Peel off that price tag. So these are actually from Michael's, as I mentioned. They're Ashland spring tulips. Hopefully you can see that. And they're $3.99 a bush. And again, they come in just a boatload of colors. Go ahead and snip off all of your stems. Toss away your end there. Let me actually go back in here, friends. I think I'm going to trim those down about an inch more than what I did. Forgive me, we're just going to go back through this real quick. We're just paying attention to how long they were. You really want that stem that you're going to be gluing in to be 1.5 to 2 inches. just enough to get it nicely tucked into your grapevine wreath, but not so long that it's sticking out the end or they really start to run into one another. There we go. Gosh, I'm just sending those everywhere. Okay, now back to this bush in my hot mess. Making sure that's attached well, yep. Checking all 3 tulips. Gonna shove that greenery up. Let's work our way through all these friends, and as soon as I find one that's not secured, we'll talk through how to get that glued on and secure. And I'll meet you back here. All right, guys, we have made it through all of our tulip bushes with no missing tulips, no loose bits anywhere. It's the first time that's ever happened to me. I think I should go buy a lottery ticket. However, I'm sure we'll be cutting lots more bushes because, again, we're using a bigger grapevine. However, now it's time for the fun part. So we actually had turned on and preheated our glue gun, and we never even needed it. So I'm going to go ahead and unplug mine. If you don't have a glue pot, or if you just prefer the glue gun, either one works totally fine. I'm just plugging in my glue pot, and I'll tell you a little bit about this pot again, friends, while it's heating up. It just takes a couple of minutes, and we'll fast forward through that part if we need to. So this is just, it's called, the brand is Elite Gourmet, and it's just an 8x8 electric skillet, you know, meant for your kitchen. And it just plugs in. It's got a rotary dial here to change the heat setting. I kind of change mine back and forth between 1/3 of the way to the warmest setting to half, just depending on how many glue bits I have in there. And you know, you just plug it in, and I find it easier to do that than to use a glue gun to glue my florals in. And so I just take my bag of hot glue sticks, and again, I always use Gorilla brand. I feel like it really holds well. And I just grab a handful and literally cut them up into bits. They almost look like pellets. Sometimes they'll fly around and you'll have to go get them and drop them right in there. I usually keep it maybe 1/4 of the way full, if even that, of glue. You certainly don't want it to the top. It's not safe. Not to mention it won't heat evenly, and it'll take a lot longer. So I just cut up my glue sticks and drop those little bits in there and let them melt down. You can tell when they're melting, they start to go from that milky look to a more clear look, so you can already see that it's starting to melt. It always melts around the edges quicker than it does in the middle. So in my pile here, I'll have my 2 different colors, or however many colors I'm using, of my tulips that are prepped and ready. I'll have my glue pot nearby. I try to be safe, so I certainly don't want to reach over the glue pot to get my florals, so I'll kind of keep them back, keep my glue pot out of harm's way. I'll keep my snips handy in case I need to trim some stems, as I always do. I always tend to cut them a little bit too long. So now I'm just going to get my grapevine wreath back out here. You should be able to see that pretty well. And it's almost time to start loading. I'm not sure if you can still see the glue pot. I know it's a little bit in camera, but if you can tell, it's basically transparent now. It's putting off a good bit of heat. I may need to turn it down in just a little bit. So when we load these tulips, I'm just going to put a few in the middle here, or maybe off to the side even. When you put your tulips into your grapevine wreath, determine which side you want to be the front and which you want to be the back. It really doesn't matter. I just try to put the flattest side of the grapevine to the back, just so it rests nicely on the door. And when you put your tulips in, you're going, a couple things to remember. You're going to put them in at an angle, and you're going to put them in rows of 3. 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, all the way around. And so, like I said, super simple, very repetitive, and time consuming only because you've got so many tulips. And I alternate colors. And so since we've got 2 different colors of tulip bushes that we're using, on row 1, I may use light pink, dark pink, light pink, and on the next row, I'll probably do dark, light, dark, just to really keep it nice and variegated. And when you put your tulips in, you're going to put them in at an angle and work your way around, okay? So whichever direction you choose to have your tulips pointing, they're not going to go straight up and down. They're going to lay on their side a little bit, like so. You're going to build away from the tulips. So they're always going to face the same direction, but away from one another. And you'll see what I mean in just a moment. And so at this point, you would either run a bead of glue along your stem with your glue gun, or in our case, give it a little dip into your hot glue pot, kind of swirl off that excess, and stick it in. So I've got light pink on the inside. So I'll put darks on the outside and the inside. And sometimes that grapevine is loose, friends. You'll just want to make sure it's grabbing a hold of something. So we've put our first row in, and it's dark, light, dark. They're laying at an angle, if you can see. And so our next row, we'll do light, dark, light. And we're always going to come in behind, so that we're not fighting our tulips from the last bit that we've inserted. And I like for the greenery to kind of be poking out. I think it's super cute, but it's very much personal preference. So you could lay it down this way or this way. I just keep alternating and variegating because I like lots of texture, lots of dimension. And so now we've got 2 rows in, and you want it to come a little bit further down the side, more so than what you would in the middle, because no one's really going to see that middle, or at least not be face to face. So now we're going to alternate. So now we're back to doing dark, light, dark. So I'll do dark, white. And dark again. And now we've got our third row in. So we're just going to keep doing this all the way around. I am certain that probably at the halfway point I will have to pause, pull out some more tulip bushes and get them prepped, because I'm sure with this bigger grapevine wreath we simply won't have enough, which is fine. The more the merrier. So I'll meet you back once we run out of tulips. All right, guys, just as we suspected, we made it through half of this wreath, this tulip wreath. So we've gone through 6 bushes. I'm going to guess that we're going to need another 8 because we're really not quite halfway through. Although we'll start with 6 and see where that takes us. So come back with me in just a few moments. I'm going to take some time to prep a few more bushes. All right, guys, I've got the rest of the tulips prepped. We'll see how far another 6 bushes takes us. So they're prepped and ready to go. I'm just going to go back to gluing. Stick with me and we're just going to keep working our way around. All right, friends, this particular customer actually wants a bow on their wreath. So I'm going to stop there. You would normally just fill in this last little bit. Once you got to the edge, you would, where you started, your starting point, you would just lift up your tulips a little bit and slide those extra tulips underneath. If you're going to add a bow to your wreath, like I'm going to do, you're going to want to leave about a 6 to 8 inch bare space on your grapevine to allow for lots of room for the bow. Do go ahead and make yourself a tulip wreath. Please drop a picture below, send me a comment, and let me know how it went. I'm always excited to see. Thanks.